Okay, we are going to begin creating our first routes by going into our Explorer here, and let's create a folder called routes. Then inside of that folder, let's create a users file, a stores file, and finally a products file. So the way this is going to work is that we are going to create all of our routes here in each of these files, and then we're going to require those routes inside of our index.js file. So in order for us to be able to import our routes into our index.js file, let's use module exports. We're going to set it to a function that takes an app, which is going to be our Express instance. And then the first route we're going to create is app route, and we're going to set it to products. Then let's create a post request, put in a function with request and response. So now whenever we send a post request to our products endpoint, it's going to run this function. And because we're using the body parser middleware, we're going to be able to access the data that we send to it. And to be able to do that, let's just console log request.body. So request body is going to be the data that we send to this endpoint. Since it's a route, we need to be able to send a response. We'll just send the JSON of request body, and let's send a little message along with this. Let's create an object. We'll call the message it worked. And then we're going to set the data to request body. So here we have a post request that's sent to the products endpoint, and it's going to run this function here. It's going to console log it for us so we can see it in terminal, and then it's going to have a response, send back some JSON that says it worked, and also send back our data to us. And in a moment, we're going to actually check and see that this works. But first, let's create our stores and users endpoints as well for post. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, and we'll set the endpoint to stores. And then inside of users, we're going to set the endpoint to users. And then finally, before we can test it, we need to import our routes into index.js. So let's get rid of the route that we created earlier. And I'm going to set a little comment here to let us know that we are entering the routes area. And first, we're going to import the user routes. And in order for our routes to connect to Express, we need to make sure that we pass in our instance of Express here. We're going to finish up by adding in our stores. So this will be our store routes and stores.js. And then we're going to do our products as well. So product routes, and set this to products.js. So to test all of our routes, let's save this. We're going to close our file explorer, open up terminal, and we are going to run the command npm run dev. Now, in order for us to be able to post data to these endpoints, we're going to use a program called Postman. And you can download Postman. It's even a Chrome extension. But once you download Postman and open it up, it will look something like this. And we are first going to make a post request to localhost 3000 because we're running on the development server. And let's first hit users. And in order to send data along the wire to our post request, let's go ahead and click on the body tab. And remember, because of body parser, we can take in URL encoded data. So let's select the URL encoded data. We're going to pass in a key for name, and I'm just going to select Matt Shull. And in the description, we'll say this is an awesome description because it is. Now, if we hit send, we can see that it console logged our data. So name, Matt Shull, description, this is an awesome description. And then you can also see in Postman, it also shows you the body that's sent back. So we set it to send us a JSON object with a message, it worked, and to send us the data, which is the same data that we sent to it. So everything is working correctly there. We can go ahead and try the same thing with our stores endpoint. If we wanted to, we can send that along. You can see that it does the same thing. And in order to see that it's different, let's just do this as an awesome store description, send that again, and there is our store description. And finally, we can do it with our products endpoint. And of course, we don't want to send a store description along with product endpoint. So let's do, this is an awesome product description, and send that along. And you can see it console log there, and we see it in the body. So now let's go over back to our users.js file, our users route. If you need to be able to access a specific key, specific piece of information, you can do so in the request body just by adding the name of the key. So here we can access just the name like so. And let's say we want to access just the description as well. This is useful if you need to, take a piece of data that's sent over from the user and massage it a little bit, turn it into a numeric or a string. Now let's save this and let's go back. You see NodeMon has restarted our application for us, and we'll go back and hit our users endpoint. And now you can see that we in the console log have that small piece of information from that big set of data. So in a real world situation, you probably won't need these console logs, but instead what you would do if you're making a post request and you want to create a record is whenever you use a database, just use insert into users and make that call. Then once that's successful, you can use the response to return some JSON and send maybe a status code, a little message, and then maybe the data back to the user as well. And in part 2 of the Node API course, we're actually going to get into how to hook up a Mongo database, a MySQL, MS SQL, or Azure, and we'll actually put those into these endpoints then. So now let's save this, and we're going to do the same thing in stores, get rid of the console log. We're going to make a note for ourselves so that we know to add a database query in later, and do the same thing in our products.js file. That's going to do it for our post API endpoints. So let's get started on our get endpoints.